Good morning, everyone. This is Daniele Capezzone, a view from Italy, the Watcher Post from the Utopia Studios in Rome. And it is an honor and a pleasure to have with us Mr. Mathios Rigas, who's Chief Executive Officer of Energean. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Rigas. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, buongiorno, and thank you very much for hosting me today. It's a great pleasure to be with you.
Mr. Rigas is a founding shareholder of Energean, is a petroleum engineer with a combination of oil and gas and investment banking experience. Among other things, he has been the CEO of the group since 2007. He has led Energean to successful listings on the London and Tel Aviv Stock Exchange and a couple of transformational deals, that is to say, the acquisition of the Karish and Tanin fields offshore Israel, 2016, and the acquisition of Edison ENP in 2019. Thank you again for accepting our invitation. Being your company an independent gas energy company, what's your current view about the energy situation in the EU in general, and especially after the Ukrainian crisis?
Well, Daniele, we are living in unprecedented times. And I think in one word, I would say that the world is having a reality check that for the last 2 to 3 years has been completely misrepresented by a lot of the politicians. A reality check that says that our life is extremely important and we understand that we need security of supply above anything else. What is at stake today is democracy. What is at stake today is the Western world we know and like to live in, because we woke up after the war and after the invasion of Russia into the Ukraine into a reality that says that a lot of the gas in the European Union, 180 billion cubic meters a day, is provided by Russia. And although we are putting sanctions, although we are stopping big firms like McDonald's and Starbucks and coffee shops and fashion industries, we are still buying gas and oil from Russia, which means that we are still, as Europeans, paying a huge amount of money, which I estimate to be in the range of $1 billion a day, to fund the war that Russia is doing against Ukraine. So I think a number of politicians are starting to realize, not all of them, and I will come back to that point, that security of supply and local production of energy is extremely important for the security of the countries that we live in. The second observation, in the reality check that I mentioned, is affordability of energy. Today, the average Italian, the average Greek cannot afford to pay the huge increases of electricity that we're seeing in the market. And that is something that is caused entirely by the huge increase in the gas price that is coming as a result of this horrible war that we've experienced for the last months. So energy has to be, of course, sustainable, and I'm the first one that believe that we should go into a greener future, although I run an energy company that is based on hydrocarbons. That is the future for the planet. But I also think that the energy has to be affordable, have to be able to pay for the cost, and it has to be continuously available. Because, you know, Daniele, no one in our part of the world is willing to switch off the lights, to switch off the air conditioning, not to drive our cars, not to go on holiday, not to take planes, to reduce the amount of energy that we use. So demand for energy is very high. The world is consuming 100 million barrels of oil a day. Demand for gas post-COVID is increasing again. Italy is consuming about 75 billion cubic meters a year. And all of that is imported by countries that are not stable. That's the reality we live in.
First of all, thank you for reminding us what's really at stake. Unfortunately, so many leaders of the political arena and also in the media arena seem to have forgotten both the geopolitical challenge and also the challenge in terms of cost of living for so many families and businesses. Since your company has operations in 8 countries with a great focus on the East Med region, what's the potential of East Med as an energy supply source for the EU?
Well, we operate, as you correctly said, in 8 countries. The majority of our business comes from Israel and Egypt, 2 countries that took a very different view if you compare them with countries like Italy or even Greece that we also operate in. And they have promoted the exploration and development of gas for the last years. Result, Israel is a country that has moved from being energy dependent. Israel used to import coal and gas from Egypt to become an energy independent country and now an exporter of gas. So Israel is exporting gas to Egypt. Egypt has a very big gas production, primarily from a discovery that Eni made called Zohr, and that has made the country self-sufficient and with the potential to export gas. Now, there is more gas to be found in the East Mediterranean. Energean is drilling 5 wells this year. Already the first one is completed. We hope to be able to announce results very soon. That should have more gas to go into the European Union. And this is an area that can provide a solution. An area that can provide a solution, not the full solution, because it's impossible today to replace Russian gas overnight. What people need to understand is that from the day you start to the day you produce gas, it takes 6 to 7 years. Yeah. So there's no magic. There's no magic solution that somebody can turn off on a tap and bring gas today to the European Union. It will come from the United States with LNG. And I see that a lot of the countries are creating new LNG import terminals. It will come from Algeria. It will come from Qatar. It will also come from the East Med. It will also come from Norway and the North Sea. So everywhere we need to be able to produce more gas from stable democracies the way we know them and countries that we can rely on. But the most important part for every country, including Italy, is to have its own production. Because at the end of the day, Italy will consume 75 BCM, billion cubic meters of gas. So the question I ask, and it's a very direct question towards the Italian government and the Italian people that are listening and watching this great show. Do you want to produce your energy or you want to import your energy? Because you're going to use it. And if you prefer to import it, and you're importing it from countries that are not stable, and the countries that can even press the button on a nuclear weapon, then we reach the situation that we have today. So my view is that the East Med can provide a solution, part of the solution, but the solution should come from each country, from its own resources, because without that, you will rely on someone else. You will not rely on Russia, you will rely on another country, maybe a better, maybe a worse country, but it's not a solution.
So thank you for both things, for reminding us that we need a diverse and multiple strategy to deploy, and also for reminding us what Italy should be doing by itself. Let's come to Italy, if I might. And let's talk about a sort of unearthed treasure, which is represented by our gas reserves. Could these Italian reserves help Italy meet and satisfy our energy needs? What's the potential of this kind of resources, and where are these located?
Well, as you said in the beginning of your talk, we bought the exploration production business of Edison about a year ago. And when we took over the assets, we believed that we could do a lot more and increase production in Italy. Our production in Italy represents a small percentage, about 7% of the production coming from the local market. Overnight, we can increase oil production south of Sicily. Overnight, just by getting permits to do interventions in the existing Vega and Rospo fields that have been in production for decades without a single impact on the environment. And one key message here to the local populations is to look at the example of Vega and Rospo in Sicily, to look at the example of our field in Greece. We operate in Prinos. There is the right operator does not create any impact to the environment from producing hydrocarbons. For 40 years, we've been producing next to one of the most beautiful Greek islands called Thasos. I'm sure some of our Italian friends will have visited this beautiful island, and nothing has been impacted. Fishing, tourism, local communities, jobs have been created. So we could increase overnight oil and gas production from our existing assets. In addition, and I'll come to that, in addition, in the Adriatic, in the North Adriatic, there is a lot of gas potential with infrastructure that we could invest. I don't want to give you numbers because I don't like to speculate. Oil and gas is a business where you only know what you have once you've drilled a well. If the government does not allow us to drill wells, we will never know how much gas the country can produce. So suddenly this government is implementing PTSI, this new law that bans exploration. It stops exploration for new resources in the name of populism, because that is what is nice to be told to the people, thinking about the votes. And of course, the politicians need to be re-elected. And of course, I understand that they need to say to the people what the people will need to say, but they need to tell the truth. And the truth is that this world, and I'm not speaking about my business in Italy, because just to give you a perspective, our company produces or will produce from September 200,000 barrels of oil equivalent a day, most from Israel and Egypt. Italy is 10. So even if we have to leave Italy, it's not going to impact our business. Italy will lose, not Energean. So what I'm saying here is the government needs to allow our business to do what we know how to do, which is to produce safely and with respect to the environment the hydrocarbons that the country needs. Because the green future will come, but the transition will come through natural gas. Otherwise, all that will happen is we will consume more coal, which is even worse for the environment. This is what's happening right now. I'll give you an example from my home country. I come from Greece. The Greek Prime Minister, 2 weeks ago, and I was present with him, made an announcement that the country is restarting exploration for gas, although his previous position was that exploration should be banned, because he realized that Greece has to become energy independent. The alternative is to burn lignite, so which is a lot worse for the environment. So bottom line, and to keep things simple, yes is the answer. Italy can produce a lot more gas. Yes, it can be done safely without an impact to the environment. Yes, we have to go to a greener future with renewables, but until we are able to get there, we need to be able to produce our own gas. And one more point. I understand that the government wants to impose a super tax on the super profits, as they call them, of energy companies. Well, guess what? 2 years ago, when the oil price was zero and we were losing $50 million a year from our business in Italy, nobody came to ask if we need any help. And I know that, again, it is very nice and easy to attack the big bad energy companies, but the reality here is that if governments act in this way, there's not going to be no investment. And I'm not threatening, I'm not blackmailing, I'm just stating the reality. My shareholders, who are shareholders on the London Stock Exchange and the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, as you mentioned, They don't care if our profits come from Italy, Greece, Israel, Egypt, or the other countries. They care about results. So we will invest in the countries that are more friendly and favorable. And I hope that these are Italy. This is Italy because I really love Italy, Milan. I live in Milan these days, so it's a fantastic place, and I really want to invest a lot more in Italy.
I agree entirely, if I might. What you have just done is not a threat, is a description of what might happen. So and it is also extremely interesting what you have said about how the Greek Prime Minister decided to turn over a new leaf. So let's stay in Italy, please, and let's go on telling the truth to those in power and also to the Italian viewers. What's wrong in the Italian regulatory framework? How this regulatory framework facilitates or prevents investment in this sector?
The biggest challenge we have is called PTSI. PTSI is the law that allows or not the activities of our business. And for the time being, the only activity that is allowed is exploration for gas outside the 12-mile zone. Well, you know, I wish we could find gas where it's nice and suited, but gas is where God and Earth has created the gas accumulations. So we have to be able to go and produce this gas wherever it is. It doesn't matter if it is onshore, near shore, or offshore, deep water offshore. I understand that nobody wants to see big platforms. Nobody wants to see infrastructure in their backyard. Nobody wants to see their nice beach be impacted. And we respect that. We understand that because we are Mediterraneans. I'm Greek. I know the value of tourism. I know the value of being able to go to swim in a very nice beach without seeing a platform in front of you. So we'll respect that. There are technical solutions like the one that we did in Israel that places the infrastructure far away. We can work together. And that's the key message that I want to give to the NGOs, to the local communities, and to the Italian government. We should all work together, not against each other. This is not a fight, energy companies against Greenpeace or WWF or local communities. This is a matter of national security right now. Italy relies on gas that is imported from Russia. This has to stop. This is what we've all decided as Europeans. So we want to rely on someone else. We can do that. We should produce as much gas as we can from Italy. And that's the message. So any problem, any regulation that stops that is an impact on national security. That's the way I view the world. And now we are beyond nice words. Yeah. We are beyond, telling stories that we will become energy independent just by wind and solar. We need wind and solar. We need everything we have from renewable sources, but that's not enough. Okay. That's not enough.
If you have time, I have three last questions. The first one, how do you consider the security of supply from the energy standpoint, especially for the countries which are traditionally net importers?
Well, as I mentioned before, my view is very firm. Every country should be trying to become self-sufficient, to control its own destiny. I'll give you an example. Israel, today, long-term gas contracts at a price of around about $4.5 per MMBTU. Europe, 6 to 7 times this price. Result, Israeli electricity production and cost is low. Israeli economy is booming. The governments are facilitating investment. The government is facilitating investment. Look at Italy. Look at Greece. The government needs to subsidize, to give subsidies to people to be able to afford their electricity bills. So that's not sustainable. No economy can afford to subsidize imported gas. So first issue, and I think that's the biggest issue that everybody's going to face, is the affordability of gas and affordability of electricity. Second point is who is providing this electricity, and your question is absolutely correct. Security of supply. Who do we rely on? We rely on Russia, which is threatening a nuclear war. Would you put your future, the future of your children, in the hands of someone that is threatening you with death? So security of supply and national security for Italy should be the top priority at the moment, in my view. I'm not a politician, I'm a businessman, but as a citizen of Italy, that's what I expect from the leaders of the country, to put national security and security of supply above anything else. Then we can talk about the rest.
Thank you for your wise suggestion. Let's go back to Italy once again. First, you mentioned the North Adriatic and Sicily. As Energean Italy, what's the effort you might put in place leveraging on your current 7% of the Italian domestic gas production?
Well, we can drill wells in our existing concessions, if we're allowed. We can apply for new concessions. We have a concession which, an area which we plan to explore in the Adriatic on the Greek side, which is bordering Italy, that we believe has a lot of potential as well. So we are ready to invest. Energean is investing at the moment, as we speak, $2 billion just in Israel and another $1 billion all around the country. We're also partners with Eni in Cassiopeia, the big gas project that is being developed, and it's a project that is moving. But if we see that the government is imposing all these penalties that will impact us, we will have to reassess our position about that project as well. So we need all the obstacles moved. We need a favorable investment environment. We need quick approvals, and what we will commit to is investment, jobs, and protection and safety to the environment and local communities that we operate. That is what I can promise right now. And we have an agreement with the unions, the national and the local unions and our own union, that we would maintain all the jobs when we took over Edison, and we would maintain also the jobs that are created by our activity. But if the government doesn't allow us to invest, if the government changes the rules, that deal is off. So ESG, which are the three key words, is environment, social impact, and governance. Don't forget that this business has a huge social impact. We create jobs, we bring taxes, and we pay taxes to the governments that we operate in, and we create a lot of value from the operations through avoiding imported hydrocarbons in countries. So the social impact of shutting down an industry is going to be huge. And remember one more thing. Expensive gas doesn't only impact power generation, it impacts all industries. Yeah. Industries will not be able to compete with their competitors, cement factories, steel mills, aluminum plants, all the big users of energy that cannot rely on solar or wind. And we're not talking about buying an electric car and driving in the center of Milan or Rome. That's of course good, but that doesn't save the world. So we're talking about the thousands of jobs that will be lost if the Italian industries are not competitive. Yeah. And that can only be achieved with locally produced, low-cost energy, like the example of Israel that I gave before, not with imported expensive LNG that will come from the States. Imagine you have to bring gas from the United States, you have to liquefy it, you have to put it on a ship, you have to bring it all across the Atlantic, regasify it, bring it into the system so that the consumer can use it. All this is adding cost compared to producing it locally. So that's, in my view, the solution. Locally produced gas, and then transition to a greener future.
My final and general question, in a mid and perhaps long-term view, there is a great public conversation about energy transition, about sustainability. What's your vision about that?
Well, Energean is the first exploration and production company in the world that committed to a net zero strategy. December of 2019, before all this became a big topic, we committed to be a net zero company by 2050. And when I did that statement, a lot of people were saying, yes, by 2050, you will be 85 years old and, who cares? You probably will not be around. That's not the point. The point is that we have reduced our carbon intensity, meaning the amount of CO2 that we emit per barrel produced, by 80% by being more efficient, by relying on green electricity for our operations, by switching to gas. And the next phase of our development is to create carbon storage projects like the one we're developing in Greece. Carbon storage, in very simple words, is capturing the CO2 emitted by industries, transporting it either with ships or pipelines, and putting it back into reservoirs where it came from. This, in my view, is the solution that this industry can bring to the CO2 problem of the planet. This industry has a huge execution capability. We can run projects, we can drill wells, we can put together, and I'm not talking only about Energean, I'm talking about the whole industry. Eni is a prime example. The Ravenna project is a fantastic project to store CO2 in Italy. Many more projects like this need to happen. The solution to reducing dramatically CO2 and bringing a real solution to the planet, not just Italy, every country, because this is a problem of the planet. This is not a matter of Italy or Greece or Western Europe. It doesn't matter if we become green in Italy and China burns coal. It is a global issue that we need to think about. So this industry has the execution capabilities, it has the technical know-how, it has big companies that can execute big projects to be the solution to the CO2 problem, not the problem itself. So we have to stop demonizing and we have to stop thinking that oil and gas companies are the devils. And of course, I know that when I speak to the friends of my children who are 23, 24-year-olds, they think that the oil and gas industry is a devil that destroys the planet. Well, actually, think about what each and every one of us is doing to reduce the consumption of energy. And then we will talk about how we move to a greener future. Because no one, as I said before, at least for now, in Western Europe, is thinking about what I call a just transition. We are talking about Western Europe, we're talking about Italy, Greece, France, Germany, etc. But we forget that there are 8 billion people out there in the rest of the world that don't have the same lifestyle that we use. And we are obliged as human beings on this planet to have a just transition. They need to be able to afford to have the same level of comfort that we live in. So we cannot just stop hydrocarbons and move back to burning coal, because that is where we are at the moment. So this industry, and we specifically, Energean, has a sustainability rating, has a sustainability strategy. We have our climate change related policies. We adhere with all the sustainable development goals of the United Nations. And for us, sustainability is a license to exist without being sustainable, and what's the definition of sustainability? The sustainable company is one that can continue throughout the years and can pass on from one generation to the other its existence without impact to the environment. That is our philosophy. That is what we try to do every day of our life, in small things and in big things. And I hope that the politicians, as I said before, will start to tell the truth to everyone. The public understands that gas is needed. Gas is the security for all of us. And through gas, we can only go to a greener future, which we all want and we all expect to achieve as fast as possible.
And if I might, this is even more true if you think that here in the West we are always putting the blame on ourselves, forgetting that someone else, think of the Chinese, are going on burning coal as if there is no tomorrow. So that's crazy,
Exactly.
of course. So
Exactly.
our time is over. Our conversation is over. Thank you. Really, thank you, Mr. Rigas. It has been an honor and a pleasure to have you here. Hope to see you again. Mr. Mathios Rigas, as I've said, is the Chief Executive Officer of Energean. Thank you again. And for our viewers and listeners, see you next week. Thank you once again.
Thank you.